Story 1. My older brother told me back in the 1980s that the hoverboard from Back to the Future Part 2 was real, and it worked by using powerful magnets on the bottom that pushed against the Earth's magnetic field. However, the toy company Mattel didn't release it for mass consumption due to safety concerns, as it was even more dangerous than a normal skateboard. Since this was before the internet, I genuinely went through all my childhood believing it was true. Of course, my brother had promptly forgotten that obvious lie as soon as he told me about it. When I finally confronted him about it years later, he found it even funnier that he didn't remember telling me and that I had believed it for so long. Story 2. I was 6 years old in bed asleep. I woke up with a sore throat and walked in on my parents. Well, it turns out what they were doing wasn't really wrestling. Story 3. You have to sit out of the swimming pool for 30 minutes after eating or you will cramp up. What was that? Story 4. Being an adult, attending college, and contributing to society would make my life easier. Story 5. You can tell if someone is lying by looking at their tongue. In retrospect, I know that parents often look to see if you hesitate to show your tongue, but there were times when I confidently showed my tongue and was still accused of lying. Story 6. My mother's boyfriend told me that if you buried a pickled egg in the ground, it would grow a pickled egg tree. Story 7. Tooth Fairy. The funny part is that my mom told me from the beginning that Santa Claus wasn't real because she said it was wrong to lie to kids. Yet, she fully embraced the Tooth Fairy. Story 8. Santa, the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, the Sandman, and Jack Frost are all familiar figures. Additionally, I learned that driving barefoot is not against the law. As an adult, I have worn shoes that were uncomfortable or would slip off my feet while using the pedals, so I sometimes took them off. My mother believed I was breaking the law, but the police clarified that there is no such law. Story 9. In the early 1960s, I was 3 years old. I had a dime and my 8-year-old brother had a nickel. He convinced me to swap my small coin for his larger one. Story 10. Religion is fundamentally about being good and believing, so your dreams can come true and you can spend eternity with those you love. This idea is as plausible as Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy. Story 11. If you turn the car engine on while it is getting gas pumped, it will explode. You cannot go into the water fountains and dig up coins from them because it will electrocute you. I believed both of them, and the car one really scared me. Story 12. I asked my dad why there are bumps on the road, the ones that appear when the speed limit is decreasing, and he said, "That's for blind people." I thought it was ridiculous, so I replied, "Yeah, right, Dad." Then he drove on the rumble strips on the shoulder and the median, explaining that they added them in the lanes so blind people don't drive off a cliff or into the woods. I believed that for a decade. 8-year-old me to 18-year-old me never questioned it. When I started driving, I casually mentioned to my girlfriend, now wife, that it must be hard for blind people to drive. She started laughing hysterically, and it only got worse when I explained my dad's reasoning. Story 13. You can trust the police. They are your friends. Perhaps the dumbest lie ever told by a parent, next to Santa Claus being real. Story 14. My brother told me the white shepherd-type dog across the street was a goat. I believed him for so long, which was probably the first sign I needed glasses. Story 15. It's amazing to me that people still believe that you eat 6 to 8 spiders per year. Just this week, I felt obliged to inform someone that this is indeed false. Story 16. My parents told me there were 2 types of minutes, a long minute and a short minute. The misunderstanding arose because I was an impatient child. It turns out I have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The short minute was 5 minutes, and the long minute ranged from half an hour to an hour. As soon as I learned how clocks work, I felt so betrayed. Story 17. My dad had me convinced from the ages of 3 to 6 that our cat used to go to the garage at night to make himself a cup of coffee and a sandwich. I think it was because I would always start crying when they let the cat out at night, as I wanted him to sleep in my bed. So my dad decided to create this scenario so I wouldn't be such a crybaby. Story 18. I need to wash myself to avoid infection. If it becomes infected, the doctor may have to perform surgery, and I would need to carry a bag for convenience. Thank you, Dad. Story 19. I got a toy gun that made a rattling noise when the trigger was pulled. My mom told me to put it away because the batteries might run out, those non-existent batteries in my plastic machine gun. Story 20. My mom wasn't having an affair. She was definitely having one. This was confirmed when they got married. Story 21. The best story I heard was from my wife. Her brother had convinced his younger sister that she did not like crunchy bars and would always swap with her for something he did not like. She discovered in her 20s that she really liked crunchy bars. Story 22. Parents told me that roots will grow in my wound if it's not disinfected immediately. I also watched The Ruins as a kid, so you can believe that I let them wash my wounds with alcohol, even though it hurts a lot. Story 23. If you get caught in the rain and get wet, you need to take a shower as soon as possible once you are home. Otherwise, you are likely to catch a cold. However, a hot shower does feel nice if you have been in a rainstorm, so it can be a bit of a dilemma. Story 24. Back in first grade, I attended a school concert, and the girl next to me wanted to switch seats to sit with her friend. The savvy negotiator I offered to make a trade. To be honest, I don't remember what prompted the swap initially, but by the end, we switched because she had me genuinely believing I was about to get a pet cheetah that I would be feeding pigeons. I went home so excited to tell my grandparents that we needed to get a big cage for my pet cheetah. Oh, bless their hearts. Story 25. A friend told me in elementary school that if I just said the magic words, I could turn into a fairy. Story 26. My mom and my aunt put icy hot on my cousin's leg one day when we were about 7. My cousin said it burned, and our mom said, "That's because it's melting your leg off. Don't worry, once it's done, you won't feel a thing." We cried and had a mini funeral for her leg. Story 27. If we sang "You Are My Sunshine," the rain would stop and the sun would come out. It never did, but we did it anyway. Story 28. Grandma said that if you hit someone on their back hard enough, the expression they were making at the time would be stuck like that. I think she said this to keep my brothers and me from fighting each other. Story 29. Not me, but my daughter believed I took our beloved family dog to live with an elderly couple on a farm when I put it down and explained it to her 8-year-old self. She called me from a bar while in college where someone used the phrase euphemistically. She argued with the person that I did, indeed, take our dog upstate, until her friends clued her in. "You made me look foolish," she screamed at me. Story 30. A student at school told us that the reason actors make so much money is so they can enjoy themselves before their characters are killed in movies or television shows. I am not sure why I believed it, but my parents figured it out when I refused to watch television for nearly a year. Story 31. I thought the Smoky Mountains were called the Smoky Mountains because they occasionally smelled like smoke due to the type of rock formations. I believed this well into adulthood more than I care to admit. Story 32. You should always have a lamp on near the TV when you watch it. It's important for your eye health. This idea was entirely made up by General Electric to encourage bulb burnout. Story 33. Walking around with one shoe on and one shoe off means you don't love your mother. I don't get it either. On a more serious note, I was told that if you move too much while getting an injection, the needle could break off, travel through your veins, puncture your heart, and kill you. Ask me how I handle medical procedures these days. Story 34. When I was around 8 to 10 years old, my brother told me the word gullible wasn't in the dictionary. I literally got out the dictionary, as we had a physical book back then, and looked it up, saying, "Yes, it is. Look." He just laughed. I finally understood the joke in my late 20s. Story 35. When I was about 4, my parents told me that my cats were going to a farm where there were plenty of mice to chase and meadows to run in. I didn't understand the truth until a 7th grade lunchroom conversation where I was recounting what happened to my childhood pets. Story 36. The light inside the car was illegal to turn on at night, and if you didn't wash the conditioner out of your hair well enough, you would wake up with bugs in your hair. Story 37. We got our address carved into a giant stone in our front lawn. Dad told me they did it with a very sharp spoon. Story 38. If I slept with my feet out from under the covers, the boogeyman would come and tickle my feet until I wet my pants. My mom made me so scared that she had to give me a pumpkin-colored sweater to sleep in because it kept the boogeyman away. Story 39. The world was in black and white when they were children. All dogs are male and all cats are female. April Fool's Day is only in the morning. Story 40. My mom told me a birdie said what I had done. When I was a child, I watched Mowgli and the Lion King and was convinced animals could talk with humans. Then I turned 5. Story 41. Oh, you wouldn't like it. It's grown-up candy, said my mom about her almond roca stash. I didn't even try them until my 20s. Story 42. My family dog bit someone when I was about 5. He went to a farm after that. I was in my 30s when my wife made me rethink how that went down and if people really send dogs that bite to a farm. Story 43. My dad had moved across the country. He never left town. I didn't figure it out until I ran into him as an adult. Story 44. Putting a marshmallow on the windowsill will roast it. All because my mom didn't want me roasting it on the stove. Story 45. After you eat, you must wait 1 hour before going swimming, or you may cramp up and drown. My mother firmly believed this. When we were at the lake for a picnic and swimming, she ensured we timed ourselves after our last bite. We could not approach the water until 60 minutes had passed. Story 46. I thought my parents' marriage was great and that we would be a family forever. They divorced when I was entering middle school, and my mom had another man's baby the following May. Story 47. Eating too many strawberries may cause hives. As a child, we were only allowed to have about 4 strawberries at a time. The truth is, you'll only get hives if you are actually allergic. Story 48. Christopher Columbus discovered America. For this reason, I have made it my responsibility not to rely on schools and teachers to ensure my son is receiving accurate information. The school and teachers are following their instructions, but it is my duty to set the standard. That said, my son is in 5th grade, studying high school math in his free time for fun, and he is reading a short history of nearly everything by Bill Bryson, which he selected at the library. Story 49. I can't say it was necessarily a lie. I was told the movie Mask was a true story, but in my childhood mind, that meant the actor was actually the real Rocky playing himself really disfigured, and not just an actor wearing special effects makeup and prosthetics. I was married with children before my husband corrected me. Story 50. Not that I believed it, but it was definitely emphasized. Children should be seen and not heard. And children do not have feelings and are not smart enough to have opinions. Story 51. Turtle bites are poisonous. I thought my cousin just didn't want us to put our hands in the tank, but I believed it for years. Story 52. Children do not get depressed. You will grow out of it. I had bipolar depression as a child. I never grew out of it. I grew into it. It turns out you only grow out of some things. Story 53. My mom told me glass was made from a special kind of ice. I believed this for a long time. I learned she was just joking when I asked about the ice while visiting a glass-blowing shop. Story 54. My professional wrestling inspirations and other athletes enjoyed large meals, without enhancements. What a decade in the business will teach you. It's a lie, or rather a half-truth. It's both. Story 55. When I was 6 years old, I asked my mom, "Where did I come from?" every couple of months. Her replies were different each time. "I found you crying in the jungle, took you back to my tent, and spent 8 hours picking ants out of your ears. I ate something bad and got a stomach ache. I went to use the toilet and pooped you out. I was taking out the trash one day when I heard a very loud noise. I found you crying on top of a neighbor's trash with a sign that said you were free, so I took you inside." Please note, she was not being abusive. She was a hilarious person, and I love her so much. I miss you every day, Mom. Story 56. That all birds get super shock absorber injections that allow them to sit on power lines. Grandma later corrected this when I asked why we couldn't get the super shock absorber injections. Yes, my aunt has never and will never live that one down. She was warned not to lie to me. Story 57. In 6th grade, I heard an urban legend about someone blowing air into a girl's vagina, which made her insides too cold. She caught pneumonia and then died. Story 58. Gum takes 7 years to digest, even though I vomited an actual arsenal of chewed gum at age 6. Story 59. I remember when I first lost a tooth and my parents told me to put it under my pillow and the tooth fairy would give me money. So I did, and the next day, there was a $5 bill under my pillow. This actually terrified me. I was a very logical child, and suddenly here was proof of some seemingly magical entity that not only knew I lost a tooth but was able to break into my home and leave or take things with nobody knowing. Then she started colluding with Santa, which mystified me as we didn't have a fireplace. How are they doing this? Story 60. We were taught that Native American peoples willingly gave up their land, and I somehow believed it. We were never taught about residential schools, the Trail of Tears, mass murders, or the forced sterilization of Native women in recent history, like the 1970s. This is absolutely disgusting. I'm in California, and we don't learn about this until college. Story 61. I never believed any obvious lies as a child, and I am certain I will be allowed to meet my grade 1 teaching assistant's pet Sasquatch any day now. He is really shy. You don't understand. I had a meltdown in a pizza parlor when my parents refused to believe she had a real Sasquatch. They never understood either. Story 62. My dad got me a tetherball to keep me in the garden and give me something to play with. I am an only child. Story 63. Success comes with age. It doesn't matter if you are young. Invest and be a good person. If you don't, you will regret it. Think back to this comment in 12.32 years. Trust me. Story 64. You have to wait 1 hour after eating before going in the pool. That was a lie for the parents to have a break. Story 65. My dad once told me that the decorative herb on fancy plates, which is parsley, was extremely poisonous. It is very embarrassing how long I believed that. Story 66. I used to growl a lot as a child. It was my way of expressing anger. My mom jokingly told me she would send me to live with the tigers in the zoo if I kept it up. I quieted down quickly. Story 67. When I was young, my best friend would always tell me stories to scare me. There were many good ones, but one I distinctly remember was about demons living in trees that come out at night to attack people walking underneath them. He had me avoiding trees for a few months after that. Story 68. That my parents were gone forever and that my older sister had become the central authority figure in my life. Story 69. I truly believed I was eating real buffalo when my family ordered buffalo wings from the grocery store. I even asked my dad several times if it was buffalo, and he confirmed that it was. Story 70. If you swallow watermelon seeds, they will grow a watermelon in your belly. Every time I see a pregnant woman, I think she swallowed a watermelon. I am 27 and still refuse to swallow watermelon seeds. Story 71. I have a sister born in 1976 who is 11 years older than me, so it was easy for her and my dad to convince me that the world was black and white back in the old days before color photography, when I was a little kid in the 1990s. Story 72. When I was young, my siblings told me I was found behind a dumpster. I discovered this was not true from a DNA test at age 20. I felt sad that day because nothing made sense. They are all related to me. Story 73. I'm from Texas and believe the misconception that it was illegal to pick bluebonnets. To this day, I still feel guilty picking them. Story 74. The Civil War was between the southern and northern states over land issues. While it may not be true, I have heard that Michael Jackson disliked his racial identity, which led him to alter his skin tone. Story 75. My mom told my brother and me that the whipped cream dispenser had a password. I guess because she thought we were young enough to eat it straight from the bottle as soon as she turned her back. I believed that until I was around 13, when my mom asked me to bring her something with whipped cream on it, and I asked her for the password. She looked at me like I was an alien before telling me that it was just to keep us out of it. I still feel like an idiot. Story 76. Popularity is not always an indicator of quality. Many people do not realize that there are nuances in popularity. Story 77. This one. I know it's just me. I thought for years that Dick meant, but never mind that I actually met people named Richard in my life who were called Dick. Good thing I didn't call them, but thanks, parents. Story 78. My parents told my siblings and me that the light on the device on the wall in our living room would turn red if we used swear words close to it. Sure enough, every time we stood in front of it and yelled profanities, the light turned red. I was around 14 or 15 when my father gleefully informed me that the device was an early temperature gauge for the heating under the floor. It registered our warm breath as a change in temperature over the threshold. Story 79. When I was a child, my parents told me that the police would come to arrest me. My father secretly rang a bell, and I hid for fear of being found and ending up in prison. Story 80. My aunt was expecting a baby. She was just really overweight. But I did get to sit on her belly. It was a comfy place. Story 81. Jumping or exercising right after a meal does not cause appendicitis. In biology, I learned that jumping right after a meal does not lead to inflammation of the intestines because, first, the food has not yet reached the appendix, and second, appendicitis is typically caused by bacteria, viruses, or an obstruction in the intestines. I believe correlation does not imply causation, as my cousin developed appendicitis after exercising right after a meal, which frightened me as a child. Story 82. One day, I lost my musical box and cried so hard because I couldn't find it. My dad described my behavior as throwing tantrums. I don't remember my age at the time, but he told me that my musical box was magical and would show up whenever it was lost. This continued for years, and as a kid, I would brag about my musical box. One time, when I was 10 years old, I got home early and saw my dad changing the placement of the music box. From that moment, I realized he had been the one doing it all along. At first, I was upset that I had been lied to, as kids often feel, but as I grew older, I understood how much my dad cherished me. Even during my college years, he still did it. One day, I received something from him, the original music box, as described in the letter, along with a heartfelt message. I nearly cried that day. Story 83. My mom used to get mad at me for closing the bread bag by twisting it instead of using the clip. She often told me not to twist the bag, or else it would get dizzy. I was in high school before I realized that was completely untrue. Story 84. I told my daughters that the dog, cat, squirrel, deer, or badger is just sleeping on the side of the road. They believed it for way too long. Story 85. If you had sexual relations before marriage, a portal to hell would open and consume you. Do not judge. Southern Baptists can be intimidating. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.